My name is Claire, and I'm a second-year student at a university in California. Psychology is my passion. I've always been the type of girl who doesn't strive to be the center of attention, but prefers quiet evenings with a book or a close-knit group of friends. In college, I wasn't the person everyone gravitated around, but that didn't bother me. I had my circle, and I was perfectly comfortable with it. At the start of the new semester, two people entered my life, both of whom started capturing my attention. They were two brothers, Max and Jason. Max was 2 years older than me. He was the typical popular guy on campus. A leader and activist, the captain of the football team, and always surrounded by people. If you were with him, you were instantly part of the in crowd. All the girls dreamt of his attention, and I wasn't any different. He noticed me on the very first day of the semester during our psychology class. We met during the break when I was sitting on a bench reading a book. Max approached me with a smile, and I could feel my heart race. He started the conversation with a rather generic question, asking how I was finding the subject. But it was just an excuse to talk to me. His confidence threw me off a little. He could flirt so naturally that I had to keep reminding myself not to lose my head. At the same time, his attention made me feel special, as if I were someone important to him. Max often sat next to me in class, and sometimes we would chat, talking about anything from psychology to weekend plans. But over the first few weeks of the semester, Max wasn't the only one showing an interest in me. Jason, Max's younger brother, was quite different. He was a bit shy with soft features and a warm, gentle gaze. The first time I saw him, he was sitting in the corner of the library reading a book. It was such a calm and attractive sight that I couldn't help but approach him and ask what he was reading. Jason turned out to be just as much of a book lover as I was, and talking to him was so easy. He wasn't as skilled in carrying a conversation as Max, but that was part of his charm. He didn't try to be the center of attention, but he always kept the conversation going and was genuinely interested in my thoughts. The more time I spent with Jason, the more I liked his honesty and caring nature. He didn't shower me with compliments like Max did, but his gaze was always warm and sincere. He would offer to help me with my homework, which only deepened my respect for him. We started spending time together, walking around campus, grabbing lunch at the cafe, and discussing books we liked. I could easily listen to his thoughts about literature or life for hours. I must admit I was a little confused. Both of the guys charmed me in their own ways. Max was the one who could make me laugh and feel like a queen, while Jason was the one who accepted me as I was and never tried to impress me. I could feel my emotions growing for both of them, and I didn't want to hurt either of them, but I didn't know how to stop these feelings that were quickly overwhelming me. Both of them started paying more attention to me, and although I didn't advertise that I was seeing both of them, I knew this couldn't go on forever. At some point, Max invited me to meet at a campus event on Saturday. Meanwhile, Jason asked me to go for a walk later that day. And here I was in a situation where I had to make a decision. I didn't want to disappoint either of them. As the days went on, I found myself more and more tangled in my feelings, and each brother continued to attract me in different ways. I realized I had to make a choice, but I still didn't know how to approach it. I kept putting it off, trying to figure out my feelings. But deep down, I knew it couldn't last forever. Eventually, the truth would come out. As the days went by, my confusion only grew. I found myself caught between two worlds, one with Max and the other with Jason, and it was starting to feel like I was living a double life. On the outside, everything seemed normal. I was just another college student, attending classes, hanging out with friends, and enjoying the occasional date. But inside, I was torn between two people who both meant so much to me. Max continued to be the confident, outgoing guy that everyone adored. He would often text me late at night, asking if I wanted to grab coffee or join him for a late-night study session. I would always agree, enjoying the time we spent together. He had a way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room when we were together. His attention was flattering, and I couldn't help but feel special when he was around. On the other hand, Jason was more subtle in his affections. His texts were gentler, filled with kind words, and he would often invite me to quiet places, like the library or a park bench, to talk about life or our shared interests in books. Our conversations were deeper, more intimate, and I couldn't help but feel that there was something comforting about him. He didn't try to sweep me off my feet with grand gestures like Max did, but there was a quiet sincerity in everything he did. It made me feel like I could truly be myself around him. But the secrecy was weighing on me. The guilt of hiding the truth from them both was slowly starting to eat away at me. I knew that eventually one of them would figure it out. After all, how could I keep this up forever? How could I keep juggling both relationships without them ever finding out? One afternoon, my worst fear became a reality. I had been hanging out with Max that morning at a cafe near campus. We had shared a light breakfast and talked about everything under the sun. As we were saying goodbye, he leaned in for a hug. And just as I was pulling away, I saw Jason walking by. Our eyes locked for a brief moment, and I could feel my heart skip a beat. Jason's gaze shifted between Max and me, and I could see the confusion on his face. He was trying to make sense of what he had just witnessed. I quickly excused myself from Max and rushed over to Jason. "Hey Jason," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "How's it going?" He didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "So what's going on, Claire? I see you with Max, and then you're with me. Is this some kind of game?" The words hit me like a punch in the gut. It was all out in the open now. I had no choice but to face the truth. I didn't mean for this to happen," I said, feeling my throat tighten. "I really care about both of you and I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hurt either of you." Jason took a deep breath, clearly processing what I had just said. "You didn't think we would find out?" he asked, his voice laced with a mixture of disbelief and hurt. "I didn't know how to handle it," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to make a choice, not yet." Jason looked away for a moment, running a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. "You need to make a choice, Claire," he said, his voice harder now. "You can't keep playing with our feelings." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Jason was right. I had been selfish. I had been afraid of losing one of them, so I tried to keep them both, not realizing how unfair that was to them. Just as I was about to apologize, Max appeared at the corner of the street. He had been looking for me, and when he saw me talking to Jason, he immediately walked over. The tension in the air was thick. Max's eyes flicked from Jason to me, and he crossed his arms over his chest. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice calm but with an edge of annoyance. Jason glanced at me, then at Max before speaking. "Claire's been seeing both of us, Max," he said bluntly, "and she's been keeping it a secret." Max froze for a moment, the surprise evident on his face. "What?" he said, his voice quiet, almost disbelieving. "Is that true, Claire?" I felt my heart race as both brothers turned their gaze on me. I couldn't lie anymore, not after everything that had happened. "Yes," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "I've been seeing both of you and I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't want to hurt either of you." There was a long silence as both Max and Jason processed what I had said. Max's expression shifted from disbelief to something colder, while Jason just stood there, looking defeated. "You really think you can keep doing this?" Max finally spoke up, his tone icy. "You think this is fair to us?" I could see the anger rising in Max's eyes, and it made my stomach drop. But Jason surprisingly was quiet. He didn't say anything at first. It was as if he was waiting for me to make the next move. "I never meant to hurt either of you," I said, my voice shaking. "But I know I've messed up. I can't keep going like this." Jason turned to Max, his expression a mix of frustration and disappointment. "We need to figure this out," he said quietly. "I don't know what's going to happen now, but we can't keep going like this." Max nodded, his jaw clenched. "I agree. But Claire, you need to decide who you want to be with. Because I'm not going to fight for someone who's been playing us both." My heart sank as I realized the situation I had created. I had to make a choice. But as I looked at both of them, I felt the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I couldn't keep both of them in my life anymore, and I knew I had to choose. But what if I chose wrong? What if I lost them both? The uncertainty was overwhelming. The days after the confrontation with Max and Jason were some of the hardest of my life. Every time I saw either of them on campus, I could feel the weight of my decision pressing down on me. The guilt was suffocating, and it felt like the world was closing in. I had been living in this tangled web of emotions for so long, but now the threads were unraveling, and I couldn't stop it. Max and Jason had both distanced themselves from me after our conversation. Max was still angry, though he tried to hide it behind a facade of indifference. Jason, on the other hand, had retreated into himself, and I could tell that he was hurt more than anything else. His quiet, thoughtful demeanor made everything even more complicated. I wasn't sure how to approach either of them now, and it felt like no matter what I did, it would only make things worse. I tried to focus on my studies, but it was impossible to concentrate. Every time I opened my books, my mind wandered back to them. How they were both so different, yet both so important to me. I spent hours turning everything over in my mind, weighing the pros and cons, trying to figure out what was right. But the more I thought about it, the more confused I became. I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't continue to keep them both in my life the way I had been. Someone had to be let go, and that person would be heartbroken no matter what. One evening, as I sat alone in my dorm room, I received a text from Jason. It was short, but it sent my heart racing. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a moment before typing a reply. "Sure. When?" "Now? I'm at the library." I immediately grabbed my jacket and rushed over to meet him. As I walked across campus, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The air felt heavier, like a storm was coming. I tried to prepare myself, but the truth was I had no idea what to expect. When I reached the library, Jason was sitting at one of the tables, his elbows resting on his knees. His face was serious, and his eyes seemed distant, as if he had already made up his mind about something. He looked up when he saw me, but his gaze quickly fell again, as if he was trying to figure out how to start. "Hey," I said softly, sitting down across from him. "Hey," he replied, his voice low. We both fell into silence for a few moments, neither of us knowing where to begin. Finally, Jason spoke. "I've been thinking a lot," he started, his eyes meeting mine. "About everything. About you and me and about Max. I don't want to fight with him, and I don't want to fight with you either. But I need to know what you want." My heart ached as I looked at him. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but there was also something else, something more resigned. It was as if he was preparing himself for the worst. "I know I've messed everything up," I said quietly. "I should have never let things get this far. I never meant to hurt you or Max. I don't know what to do." Jason's gaze softened a little, and he leaned back in his chair. "I get it, Claire. You didn't ask for this. But now we're here, and you can't keep pretending it's not a problem. We both know what's happening. So I need to know, what do you want? Who do you want to be with?" I felt a lump form in my throat. This was it. The moment I had been avoiding. I had to make a choice, and I couldn't put it off any longer. "I care about both of you," I whispered, my voice breaking. "But I can't keep living like this. I have to choose." Jason nodded slowly. "I understand. But if I'm being honest with you, Claire, I don't think I can do this anymore. I can't keep waiting around hoping you'll choose me. I think you already know where your heart is, even if you're not ready to admit it." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been hoping that Jason would fight for me, that he would somehow make this easier. But instead, he was letting me go. It felt like a punch in the gut, and I struggled to keep my composure. "I'm so sorry, Jason," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to hurt you. You've been so kind to me, and I don't know how to make this right." Jason gave me a sad smile. "You don't have to apologize. I just want you to be happy, Claire. And if that's with Max, then that's what matters. But I need you to be honest with yourself." His words stung, but I knew they were true. I had been lying to myself, pretending that I didn't know where my heart lay. Deep down, I had always known who I was more drawn to, even if I hadn't wanted to admit it. Max had always made me feel alive, like I was part of something bigger than myself. But Jason had made me feel understood, valued for who I was, not what I could be. It wasn't an easy choice, and I hated that I had to make it, but I knew what I had to do. "I think I've known for a while now," I said, my voice trembling. "It's Max. My heart. It belongs to him." Jason didn't say anything for a long moment, just staring at me as if he were trying to process my words. Finally, he stood up and walked around the table to where I was sitting. He placed a hand on my shoulder, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I just want you to be happy," he said quietly. "And I want you to know that I'll always care about you, Claire. No matter what." I looked up at him, tears welling in my eyes. "I'm sorry." Jason gave me a soft smile before turning and walking away. I sat there for a long time processing everything that had just happened. I had made my choice, but it didn't feel like a victory. Felt like an ending. I had lost something important in Jason, but I had also gained something, clarity. And now all that was left was to face Max and tell him the truth. The days following my conversation with Jason were filled with a strange mix of emotions. On the one hand, I felt a sense of relief. I had made my decision. But on the other hand, there was a gnawing sadness inside me. Choosing Max meant letting go of someone who had been so kind to me. Someone who had genuinely cared for me in ways I couldn't ignore. Jason's absence weighed heavily on my heart, but I had to move forward. I knew that in the long run I had made the right choice for me, but it didn't make it any easier. Max hadn't reached out since the day Jason and I had talked. I had avoided him too. The tension between us was too palpable for me to feel comfortable seeking him out. But now, with the decision made, I knew I couldn't keep avoiding him. I had to face him. I had to tell him what had happened and explain everything. So one afternoon, after a particularly long day of classes, I decided to go to the campus park where Max liked to hang out. It was a place he often visited when he needed to clear his head, and I knew it was where he'd be when he wasn't in class or with his friends. I had to do this. I couldn't delay it any longer. I arrived at the park and spotted him sitting on a bench by the lake, staring out at the water. He was alone, which surprised me, and for a moment I hesitated. My heart was racing, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was making a mistake. But I knew deep down that I had to do this for both of us. Taking a deep breath, I walked over to him and stood in front of the bench. He didn't look up right away, and for a few seconds, the only sound was the soft rustling of the leaves in the wind. "Max," I said quietly. He looked up then, his expression unreadable. His blue eyes, which usually sparkled with confidence, seemed distant, almost cold. I could tell that he had been thinking a lot too. "Claire," he said softly, his voice lacking the usual warmth it carried when we first met. "I didn't think you'd come." "I had to," I replied, sitting down next to him. "I can't keep avoiding you." Max shifted slightly, as if trying to find the right words. "So you've made your decision, huh?" I nodded, my throat tightening. "Yes, I have." Max exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. "I won't lie, Claire. I'm pissed off. But I understand why you did it. I can't say I'm happy about it, but I get it. I never wanted to hurt you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I knew that I had to choose. And I realized that I've always been drawn to you. You made me feel alive, Max. Like I was part of something bigger than myself. But it was also unfair to Jason. And to you. Max looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "So you chose me?" I nodded again, feeling the weight of the words. "Yes, I did." He was quiet for a moment, his gaze never leaving mine. "I guess I can't blame you for that. I've always been the one who can light up a room, the one people flock to. I've always had the attention, the power to make people feel special. But Jason, he's different. He makes people feel seen, heard. He doesn't need to be the center of everything to make an impact. He doesn't need to impress anyone. And I know that's what you liked about him." I felt my heart squeeze at his words. He was right. Jason was everything I had ever needed in someone who was steady, quiet, and understanding. But Max was the fire that made everything exciting. I had been torn between the two for so long because they both brought something unique into my life. "I don't know what you expect from me, Claire," Max continued, his tone softer now. "I'm not perfect. I can't promise I'll always be the guy who sweeps you off your feet. But I do care about you. I always have." Tears welled in my eyes as I looked at him. "I never wanted to put you in this position. I never wanted to make you choose between me and Jason. But I had to be honest with myself." Max reached out and took my hand gently. "And now you are. That's all I've ever wanted, someone who's real with me." I smiled through my tears, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. The decision had been hard, but I was finally free from the weight of uncertainty. "I want this," I said quietly, my voice full of conviction. "I want to be with you, Max." He smiled then, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Then let's make this work. But I need you to know something, Claire. This isn't just about us. We need to be honest with each other from now on.
No secrets.
No more hiding. I promise, I said, squeezing his hand. No more secrets. We sat there in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun begin to set. The moment felt peaceful, like everything was falling into place. It wasn't going to be easy, nothing worth having ever was, but I knew that with Max I could build something real. I had chosen him and he had chosen me. We had a long road ahead of us, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was where I was supposed to be. Eventually Max stood up, pulling me gently to my feet. "Come on," he said, his eyes lighting up. "Let's get some dinner. I think we've both earned it." I smiled, feeling a sense of happiness that had been missing for so long. "I think that's a great idea." As we walked away from the lake, hand in hand, I couldn't help but think about how much I had learned. I had been confused, scared, and unsure, but in the end I had made a choice. And now I was ready to start this new chapter with Max. No more games, no more secrets, just us. And that was enough. It wasn't the easiest journey, but it was mine, and it was just beginning.